Annunciation Radio presents Say Yes to Life with Peter Range, Senior Fellow for Strategic Initiatives at the Center for Christian Virtue.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Say Yes to Life, where we learn to embrace our Catholic faith in this secular world. I'm your host, Peter Range, Senior Fellow for the Center for Christian Virtue, and welcome to show number 469 as we continue the fight for every single human life, born, preborn, and yours in our world today. On today's show, we're tremendously excited to welcome Jason Evert. It's been about 3 years since he's been on the show, but Jason has traveled to 6 continents to bring the message of purity to millions of people for more than 20 years. He is a best-selling author for more than 15 books, including St. John Paul the Great. Highly recommend that book. How to Find Your Soulmate Without Losing Your Soul, and the curriculum You, Life, Love, and the Theology of the Body. He's a frequent guest on podcasts and radio programs throughout the country, including MSNBC, Fox News, the BBC, EWTN. Jason runs Chastity Project, hosts the podcast Lust is Boring, and leads an international alliance of young people who promote purity in more than 40 countries. On today's show, we're going to be talking about suffering, fatherhood, the pro-life movement. But first, before we get into I'm just tremendously excited again, I can't say that enough, conversation with Jason Evert. Let's go ahead and take 180 seconds around Ohio and the nation to talk about what's happening in the pro-life movement and the news. First, from the Center for Christian Virtue. For the second year in a row, the Center for Christian Virtue has partnered with Brad Wilcox and the Institute for Family Studies to rank every state in the nation on their family structure, chronicling how many people are getting married, staying married, and having children. The results from the report show that kids do better when they grow up with their married mom and dad. Quote, the data is clear. Children raised in stable two-parent homes are twice as likely to graduate from college and significantly more likely to join the middle class as adults. Marriage also provides a major economic safety net. Married men and women are about 80% less likely to live in poverty than their single peers. You can read the full report at FamilyStructureIndex.org. So a lot of love and labor went into that, FamilyStructureIndex.org. Secondly, from CNN on the peace deal between Iran and the United States. Status of the ceasefire right now. The 2-week ceasefire deal appears to be largely holding, with fewer attacks reported across the region today. A U.S. delegation will go to Pakistan for talks beginning Saturday. Now, President Trump said on the deal that U.S. forces will remain, quote, in place until a full agreement is reached with Iran. Trump also added that if the deal is not reached, which is highly unlikely, he said, then the quote-unquote shooting starts, end quote. Look, we could do a whole show on what I consider maybe the inappropriate language of President Trump concerning this entire battle and war, but for now, let's just continue to pray for peace. As St. John Paul II said, war is a defeat for humanity, so pray for peace. Peace will hold and our soldiers will come home. All right, lastly, from the Washington Examiner and picked up by Life News as well, Republicans may not include language to defund Planned Parenthood abortion business in their next reconciliation bill that'll be happening around May or June. According to a report from the Washington Examiner, House Speaker Mike Johnson is supposedly not planning to include language defunding Planned Parenthood in the next Republican-led reconciliation bill. I think this would be a tremendous mistake. It's drawing disappointment, and well it should, from pro-life advocates across the country. Planned Parenthood killed a record 450,000 unborn babies and abortions in the latest annual report just this past year. So another prayer point for us. 1, pray that Congress will again defund Planned Parenthood. And 2, the Trump administration will finally take action and put in basic safety regulations on the abortion pill, whose use continues to explode in the United States of America. All right, more on that on the weeks ahead. Now it's time for Jason Evert. Go check out his website right now, chastity.com. Chastity Project is doing tremendous holy work. I've been a tremendous fan of Jason's for many years. Jason, welcome back to Say Yes to Life. I wonder if we could just start with your Lent. How's your Easter going? Anything else you feel the Lord's been doing in your life personally these last few months that have been impacting you and hopefully helping you become the saint that you've been called to be?
Yeah, well, no, it's good to be back. Lent was good. Easter was a little rough. My wife and 2 of the kids got in a car accident on the way to Easter Mass. So it was quite a way to start off Easter, but thanks be to God, we're all able to walk away from the accident and just had a super grateful, I guess you could say, Easter, just for the gift of life and protection there. But definitely my 15-year-old son, who started his driver's permit today and was in the car, was definitely driving a little bit more cautiously after having that happen a couple days ago.
Oh, no doubt about it. Well, we were talking before the show about spiritual attacks, and that certainly sounds like one. Having a car accident on the way to Easter Mass. My goodness gracious. Well, I felt like one of the things that the Lord was kind of telling me over this Lenten season was to sit with the cross, not just to pray that the Lord would take away any cross or suffering, which that's my first prayer is like, Lord, please take this away. But I felt challenged to pray that any suffering I was experiencing, that I would just stay there until the Lord had accomplished what he wanted to do with it. And again, I'm still struggling to actually say that prayer, but I guess that's the message that I kind of received. On your website, chastity.com again, which is the website for Chastity Project, you have a quote. It jumps out right away. It says from St. John Paul II, "Don't be afraid when love requires sacrifice." Can you unpack that a little bit for us? I mean, and why did you put that right there on your website? And maybe what was St. John Paul saying, or what does that quote mean for your own life?
Yeah, well, I mean, sacrifice is, so to speak, the food of love. Love isn't merely a feeling. John Paul often said that love is an act of will that consists of preferring the good of the other to the good of yourself. Now, sometimes feelings come along of joy and attraction and infatuation. Those are all part of love. John Paul called it the raw material, so to speak, of love. But love has to mature beyond, I love you for the way you make me feel, to I love you because I want what's best for you. So it's got to kind of evolve from that love as desire to love as goodwill. And then ultimately, John Paul called it spousal love, where it's an actual gift of self. But if love is not willing to sacrifice, then it's not really the other person that you desire, but perhaps the pleasure that you can get from them. And so sacrifice is a real true test of love. John Paul said that love is a constant challenge thrown to us by God. And that sounds like a pretty darn good definition of marriage. It's a constant challenge thrown to us by God. And the answer isn't always to find the path of least resistance, just get out of the suffering. But like, as you said, in this experience of Lent, to be with God in that we're not going into prayer necessarily expecting an answer, but to be with God in those questions.
Jason, just so that our listeners know, you're speaking from experience. Just tell our listeners how long you've been married and how many kids do you have?
Yeah, we've been married for 23 years. I've been blessed with 8 kiddos. We've got 6 boys, 2 girls ranging in age from 6 up to 22. It's kind of like owning a restaurant where your customers never leave. That's kind of the vibe going on here.
I hear you on that. We got 1 girl and then 4 straight boys. So, but just married for 10 years. So it gives me hope that we can make it through these next 13 as well. But I love what you said. Sacrifice is food for love. My goodness, that's so challenging, but so beautiful. Where were you first kind of exposed to theology of the body?
It was towards the tail end of college. I started to discover John Paul's book, Love and Responsibility. And for me, that was kind of the gateway drug, so to speak, into the theology of the body, this beautiful vision of human love, of what chastity was. And then after that, I was wrapping up college and then started discovering theology of the body, and then eventually was able to plow through the text, which can be very dense and intimidating to someone who starts to read it and try to go through the whole thing. But, the work of Christopher West and others were really helpful of unpacking the deep meaning of John Paul II. And then as I discovered the riches of that, really started sharing that with the young people that I was giving chastity talks to, and then also the young adults that we lead wilderness backpacking retreats for, kind of taking that deep, timeless wisdom and then kind of melting it down without watering it down.
Jason, this is an odd question, but you've spoken probably now to, I'm guessing, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people with the message of chastity and everything of that nature. When did it really take off for you that you start getting these requests from people all around the country? I was looking at your schedule and you're, Kansas and Texas and California, different places. When did it really hit for you that, gosh, this message is kind of exploding?
Yeah, well, after college, I had been given some chastity talks in college, one classroom at a time or youth group or youth retreat. Then I got hired by Catholic Answers out in San Diego right after graduation. Started to do some talks here or there, and then they recorded my chastity talk at a high school, kind of sent that out to a lot of Catholic high schools. And then it really started snowballing from that point to about 100,000 high school students and college students per year and have been doing that now for 28 years. So we're somewhere between 2 and 3 million high school and college students in person, and maybe about 4,000 chastity talks.
Oh my goodness, that's absolutely incredible. I'm so thankful for you, brother, and the work that you've done over these 28 years. It's absolutely incredible. Well, let's dive in a little bit more here to that theme of suffering. It's really anathema to our modern hedonistic culture, which just talks about it's all about me, it's all about my pleasure, and I'm going to avoid any type of conflict, any type of cross at all costs. You tackle a lot of topics from LGBTQ issues to contraception, to pornography, to natural family planning, which involve crosses if you're going to live, according to the church teaching. Let's just take that last topic real quick because, I don't know, it's fresh for me. My wife and I practice NFP. It can be really, really hard. It requires a lot of sacrifice. I think sometimes when you first hear about it, it's sold as kind of like the solution to, not using contraception or anything of that nature, but it requires suffering. Do you ever feel like it's hard? I mean, my grandpa was a brick salesman, for example. And so sometimes when I talk about pro-life things with people or chastity, it's like I'm selling bricks. I mean, people just stone-faced, right? But you're inviting people to the way of the cross, the way of suffering. How through your presentations do you demonstrate that, yes, I'm inviting you to the cross, to chastity, or whatever that cross might look like, but also convince them at the same time that the cross, it's really for their ultimate benefit, not only for the next life, but this life as well?
Yeah, well, I think there's this idea that it's either, suffering or not suffering. It's like, no, you're going to suffer either way. I mean, if you practice chastity in high school, some people make fun of you. Oh, what are you going to become, a nun? Why aren't you doing this? Are you a prude? Are you a tease? You're going to get called names for practicing that. But let's say you don't practice chastity. You're going to get called a whole host of other names that aren't nearly as flattering. And so, just pick which suffering you want, because if I'm using natural family planning and it demands some self-mastery and some sacrifice and abstinence, okay, yeah, that's a form of suffering. But, there's another form of suffering when I turn 50 years old and maybe I've contracepted for the vast majority of my marriage and I've got my 2 kids and I start thinking, wait a minute, what if I had been open to God's plan for my body and sexuality? I could have been blessed with another child or 2 kids. It could have been 6 more grandkids. Like, wait a minute, was I stingy with God in such a way that I withheld from myself this ocean of blessings that he wants to give me, and now it's too late and the window's closed? Like, to me, that would be a much bigger cross to bear than, oh boy, we had another kid, and now I'm having another sleepless night. Yeah, it is tough. I get it. But I think a lot of people throw in the towel after like 2 kids because they think it's going to be exponentially more difficult as the more children arrive. But I'll tell you, 8 kids is easier than 2. 3 is absolute chaos. But after that, you kind of reach this kind of threshold where it's like, wait a minute, we're getting into a groove here. And now kid number 3 is playing with kid number 1 all the time. And I don't have to pretend to be a 2-year-old all day long exhausted. And wait a minute, now one's doing the chores and another one can go get the groceries. And now we start delegating things. And so, yeah, suffering is going to come, but it's just a matter of realizing that it can make you better or it can make you bitter. And so choose the suffering, embrace the cross that will make you better instead of just endlessly trying to avoid it and then binging on kind of empty counterfeits and false consolations that'll never bring you authentic joy.
Yeah, I'm 3 kids behind you. I think every new child that we've had, they kind of upset the apple cart in the context of we get into a groove and then a new baby is added and you're like, oh, wow, this kind of changes everything. It changes our routine. You're not sleeping, all those things. I mean, it's hard, especially like our neighborhood we live in. I don't know any other families, I think, that have more than 2 kids. So sometimes you feel alone or isolated sometimes in these choices as well. It's the hardest thing I've ever done, but it's also the most worth thing that I've ever done. When I think about the end of my life, looking back on it, it's like, I can't, please God, wait to have my children around me. When I think about, any legacy that I have, it's going to be those kids. It's not going to be even the work that I've done. It's going to be, those kids, please God, that are surrounding me at the end of life. I want to talk a little bit just before we get into fatherhood.
Can I throw one thing in there real quick?
Please,
Can I throw one thing? I'm sorry for jumping in.
Yeah.
But I saw something that really helped me. Mm-hmm. It said, imagine when you're 80 years old and the house is really quiet. Not only the kids aren't there, the grandkids aren't there. What would you pay at that moment to come back to this moment when you've got that little one still in diapers and you can just read them a book before bed and you can just cuddle them and just hold them tight, like what would you pay just to come back to this one moment that we're now griping about that's so difficult? Like these are these treasured years. And so if you can kind of step back and look at it through that lens, sometimes you exhale a little bit and realize, you know what, this is a blessed time. Even if I'm sleep deprived and exhausted, it's a time of life that's full of blessing.
Amen to that. I think that's, even a reflection that St. Ignatius of Loyola calls us to. It's, imagine you're on your deathbed. What decision would you have made? And I wouldn't change it for the world. The 5 kids, the sleepless nights, all that. I would do it 10 times over again. And the only thing I would do different is I'd start earlier. I'd have more kids. Please God, maybe my wife is listening. Maybe we'll have more. We'll see what happens. But anyway, real quick, before I jump into the importance of fatherhood, just want to touch base on another issue that is interest to me, because I was talking to a business friend of mine. He travels to Japan, and he was saying he was shocked at how many, or what he's heard over there concerning young people having like boyfriends or girlfriends that are artificial intelligence. They're not even human or alive anymore. So you have the chastity challenges and problems, but you have this whole new world of artificial intelligence. Just curious, in your presentations with the young people, is that starting to germinate a little bit? Are kids talking about that? Or is that not necessarily something that we're experiencing here in the country as far as challenges to what our young people are experiencing in, just forming healthy habits and, thought patterns, stuff like that?
Oh, yeah, no, that's here. That's not a 5 years from now kind of thing. It's going down right now because these parents are giving the kids the phone and the kids got unfettered access to the App Store and they see, I want to get Grok AI thing. So they download AI and right there on the homepage, it's like, hey, here's this avatar anime-looking seductive female cartoon character that you can just start talking to. And she learns you. And she asks how your day was, and it becomes this virtual friend. And I've met kids that have told me, like, this is getting really difficult because this person, so to speak, is always there for me. They know my good days, my bad days. They're giving me advice. They're picking me up, and I'm pouring out all my deepest, darkest secrets. But at the end of the day, I know they're fake, and they're not there, and they don't care. It's just a program used to keep me locked into this AI app so the company can make more money. And so the kids are there. And so there's these moments of, like I said, of desolation where they're seeking out consolation and they're not sure where to find it. And so they look for the kind of the quickest hit of dopamine, whether it's porn or doom scrolling through social media endlessly, or now these AI avatars that become your best friend. I mean, it's scary stuff, and it's here.
Gosh, that is scary stuff. And another reason I'm not going to give my kids any electronics until they're 18. My goodness gracious. Well, if you're just joining us, folks, we're talking with Jason Evert. He's traveled to 6 countries to bring the message of purity to millions of people for more than 20 years. He's an author, a speaker, and you can visit and learn more information at chastity.com. They have some tremendous materials as well that you can purchase. I've purchased, I think, hundreds of, how to be a man booklets and just passed them out to folks as well. So, and if you have a loved one who's maybe struggling with different issues, maybe LGBTQ, Z, whatever it might be, you can find information and resources how to address these issues at a real personal level. So I encourage you to go to chastity.com. Jason, at the Center for Christian Virtue, we just released our 2026 Family Structure Index, which I highlighted a little bit in the opening. You can find more at familystructureindex.org. Do you feel that a lot of our challenges today are because of the collapse of authentic masculinity and fatherhood? Why or why not?
Oh, I mean, without a doubt. I mean, the numbers you shared at the beginning kind of speak for themselves. I mean, when kids are growing up in fatherless households, typically what the guys will do, I mean, the boys will end up often with guns and the girls end up with strollers, meaning the men are kind of hyper-masculinizing themselves in the absence of a father to distinguish their male identity from the mom, while the female child is typically looking for the love she never got from her absent dad, and she's trying to find it in the arms of other men. And obviously this kind of perpetuates this cycle of poverty, broken families, unwed pregnancy, child raised out of wedlock. And you hear the stats that you shared, and it's like, kids are growing up in married, intact families are more likely to go to college and avoid crime and have better income and be less involved in poverty and this and that. And you hear people saying, well, marriage is just a piece of paper. And if that's the case, well, that's an awesome piece of paper. Like, I really want that piece of paper if it provides all these extraordinary benefits. No, it's not just a piece of paper any more than a winning lottery ticket is a piece of paper. It signifies a reality that brings tremendous benefits. And then when kids are raised outside of that blessing, they definitely have an uphill climb to go.
Amen. And when we look at the life issue here in the state of Ohio, this is not included in kind of the Family Structure Index report, but 84.9%, so 85% of women here in the state of Ohio that are procuring an abortion are single. The father's not in the picture, or if he is, he might be pressuring the woman to actually get an abortion. And those statistics hold true nationally. 80% of women who are having abortions, the dad is simply not there. And I think if we want to get to the core of the pro-life movement, we have to rebuild that iron triangle, which links sex, marriage, and baby making. It's exactly the work that you're doing. You're going out and you're talking to folks about living chastity, living the virtue, so that we can create a culture of mutual respect, of mutual gift, and one which wants to welcome new life when it comes in the world. When on the opposite view, you see, the unborn child, because maybe you're contracepting as something that is unwelcome, is an invader, is unexpected. We want every human life to be seen as a gift. And it begins, I think, with us men going back and living virtuous, holy lives. Again, why we're so thankful for your work. Speaking about the pro-life movement, though, as a national movement, I would say we're kind of scatterbrained a little bit. There's some people focusing on ballot measures. I'll be traveling to D.C. here in a few weeks to talk to some of those folks. I think we're up to 10, 15 different ballot measures across the country. So we're still fighting those things kind of from a political perspective. There's some that are focused on incremental steps at the state or federal level. Certainly we want to apply, pressure on the Trump administration, as we talked about, to just reinstate some basic regulations on this abortion pill. I mean, you got 14,000 of these being sent into pro-life states even on a monthly basis, just killing kids and harming women as well. And then some groups are saying, look, it is full abolition. We have to completely outlaw abortion. I'm not supporting anything else. So you have people kind of all over the board on this. I think your work at chastity.com gets to the core of building that culture of life. Do you agree with me? I mean, is this part of the reasons that you're doing the work that you're doing, or you see it as a aftergrowth of, impacting the culture of life?
Yeah, no, I mean, as you noted, the church's teachings on human sexuality, it's pretty simple. It's just that, love, marriage, sex, and babies go together and in that order. And when we try to rearrange that order, civilization itself begins to crumble. And so I remember when I got started in this ministry, it was from doing 3 years of sidewalk counseling. And I'm standing in front of an abortion clinic, and I started feeling late. Okay, well, why am I meeting this woman, and she's having an abortion in 45 minutes? Why couldn't I have met her when she was 15? Because maybe if she learned about chastity then, she never would have dated this creep to begin with and be in this difficult situation on a Saturday morning. So I realized to save the most unborn babies, you don't necessarily do it in front of an abortion clinic. You do it in a high school classroom. I felt like I was throwing sandbags on the banks of a flooded river when there's a dam broken a quarter mile upstream. And I could spend the rest of my life in front of that clinic and do good and important work, but it would do nothing to change the flow of traffic coming in. And then it dawned on me, like, everybody's focused on the supply of abortion, but nobody's dealing with the demand for it. And the demand is on chastity. And if we can reduce or eliminate the demand, then the supply isn't so much an issue. So I think we've got to more tightly wed together pro-life with pro-love if the pro-life movement is going to succeed.
We have to wed pro-life with pro-love 100% to make chastity, make this culture of life kind of ultimately succeed. Well said, Jason. Jason, for the years to come, we were talking a little bit about this on the show. You spoke to, as you mentioned, 2 to 3 million people, over 4,000 different kind of presentations. What's your hope next for chastity.com? Now, again, we hope that you're out there preaching for the next 10, 15 years. But what's your vision for your organization moving forward for the country and really for the world?
Well, we're forming a lot of young adults in something called JP2 Trails. Those are wilderness backpacking retreats that we do for young adults to train them in the teachings of St. John Paul II. So we go on these wilderness hikes with a priest, and then I unpack love and responsibility, theology of the body. So we're doing that kind of training thing through retreats at jpttrails.com. But then we're also launching projects. It's something called Missionaries of Chastity, and you can link to that through chastity.com, that if anyone in the world wants to give away free chastity books, we'll supply them for free. You just go to that website, launch a project, we'll send 500 to Peru or 300 to Argentina, whatever you need, and then we'll help form the people that are wanting to get this message out to their young people. And then lastly, we're in the preparatory stages right now of launching chapters for college campuses to raise up leaders to spread this message on all those campuses. So we're in the preparatory stages of that and probably going to roll that out in the next 4 to 6 months.
If people wanted to engage, get involved, again, let's point up the website, chastity.com. There's a little donate button up on top as well. Just encourage our listeners to go and donate. Jason, as we're kind of ending the show here, maybe there's a young person that's just turned on the radio here in Ohio, Michigan, wherever they might be, and they're searching. They're searching for the meaning and purpose of their life. Maybe they've had a little bit of relationship with Christianity, but it hasn't quite taken a hold. So they're 16, 17, 18, asking some fundamental questions. What's your message to them today?
I would say, for one, create room for silence in your life. We wake up to so much noise from the apps to the social media to the phone, and just create room for quiet, for God to speak to your heart. Ask Him to send into your life good friends, because you always become like your friends. Come to church. Doesn't matter what you've done, what's happened in the past, what's happened to you, what choices you've made. God's mercy is new every single morning. Trust Him with your past. If you made a mistake, trust Him with your future. Give Him the day and watch what happens. He's not wanting to stuff you into some little religious mold, because what sainthood is the full bloom of the human personality. Trust Him, because every person who seeks the kingdom of God will find themselves.
Amen. Jason, I wish we lived closer. I want to be your friend. Thank you so much for a tremendous message today, and I think that's good for all of us. Create room for silence. Surround yourself with good friends. Come to church no matter where you're at. Experience the love of Jesus Christ and trust Him. Trust Him with your past, your future, and your present. The Lord loves you. Jason, the Lord loves you. Thank you so much. God bless you and your family and your ministry.
Thanks so much. You as well.
Absolutely. Take care, everybody. Visit chastity.com today and continue on a daily basis. Never give up, never tire, and do not be afraid when love requires sacrifice. Take care, everybody. We'll talk next week on Say Yes to Life.